Okay, the next new feature we're going to cover with the Motor Limit Tool is group settings. This ties in very much to the motor settings and device settings that we've already covered. So I'm going to navigate down using my down arrow to group settings and then hit enter. Then it gives me the option to group motors or group devices. So first I'm going to start out by grouping my motors. So it's going to show me my list of groups. Again, we have 64 groups available to us. Select the group that you want to program the motors to. I'm going to select group 1. Once I select group 1, my entire list of motors populates. So now I can select and choose from this list of motors which ones I want to be part of group 1. I also have the option to select all or select none. So if you mistakenly come in and set up the wrong group, you can come back in here, select none, and it's going to erase any previously selected groups and you can start from scratch. But I want to break this down. I want this motor as part of group 1 and this motor as part of group 1. So I select those two motors by using the down arrow and hitting enter. Again, if you need to identify the shade, you can simply hover over it and the shade will begin to identify. If you have the shades renamed, that name will populate here and it makes it much easier to identify them. I have my two shades selected, so I'm going to hit back to go back to the main menu. Now my group 1 is selected. To confirm that I have the correct motors in here, any shades that I have selected as part of this group are now going to jog up and down to say, hey, we are the group that you just created, are we correct? If yes, you can move on. If no, select the group and go in to modify it. My two motors are correct, so I'm going to move on. Now I'm going to go to group 2. Now I want to put my other two motors in this group, so I'm going to select this one and this one. Now, same principle applies but for your devices. So now I can go into group devices, hit enter, select my group. Again, I'm going to go to group 1. Now, any control that are on the network are going to populate here. Again, I only have switches and contact closure interfaces plugged in, so that's all that's going to populate on my screen. I'm going to select the switch. I have two switches on my network, so it shows me both of those switches, and I can see that my S2, which is my dual zone switch, already has a check mark next to it, meaning that this motor or this group is already assigned to this switch. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter because it is a 2-zone switch. Now I can see that only zone 1 is assigned to group 2. I still need to associate group or zone 2 with a group. So zone 1 is part of group 1. I'm happy with that. So now I'm going to back out. I'm going to go all the way back to my group devices menu. I'm going to go to group 2, hit enter. I'm going to select my switch. Again, I can see that S2 is already highlighted, so I'm going to go in here and I see that group 2 is already assigned to zone 2 of the switch, which is perfect. It's exactly how I wanted it. If for some reason you did not want this program this way, I could simply come here, check this, and it unchecks that box. Now zone 2 is not programmed, it's back to a master. But for this instructional video purposes, I'm going to leave this with zone 2. All right, perfect. My 2-zone switch is now programmed to group, so now I'm going to go in and set up my S1 or my single zone group, my single zone switch. So I'm going to select that by hitting enter. And I also want zone 1 to be part of group 2 because I want my single zone switch and zone 2 of my dual zone switch to operate the same shade group. So I'm going to select enter. This zone is now part of group 2, hit back. And now both my single zone switch and zone 2 of my dual zone switch are going to operate the same group of shades. Very easy to do all of this programming directly from the limit tool in one accessible point. Same principle is going to apply for the contact closure interface. I'm going to select my group number, so I'm going to go back to my group devices menu. I'm going to navigate down to group 3. I'm going to select contact closure. This pops up, I only have one contact closure available, so I'm going to go ahead and check mark that box, hit it. Now, once I select the contact closure interface, I see the 3 groups that are available to it because it has 3 dry contact terminals. I can pick from those 3, or I can select all 3 of those to be part of the group. For this instance, I only want my second set of dry contacts to be part of group 3, so I'm going to select that and hit enter. That box is now checked. I can hit back, and the second set of dry contact terminals is now programmed to group 3. Meaning my group 1 and group 3 are from my contact closure interface are masters, but my second set of dry contacts is only programmed to group 3, so it gives me both individual and master control for flexibility. If you have any further questions or concerns, please contact Draper Technical Support at 1-800-238-7999 and select option 3.